play PokerStars casino games when I want a little bit of fun between everything else I got going on. That's it. No more. So take all the time out you need and set your limits. And if it's not fun, do something else. Then, and only then, will your downtime be epic.
Find out more at pokerstars.uk/playsafer. 18+, begambleaware.org. Play responsibly.
Everyone can now get free rapid COVID-19 tests twice a week. They show your results within 30 minutes. They also show you're doing what you can to protect your loved ones, your friends, your workmates, and that you want to keep life moving again. Around 1 in 3 people who have COVID-19 have no symptoms and are spreading it without knowing. That could be a friend, a relative, a workmate. It could even be you. Rapid tests are easy to get from nhs.uk/get tested. Let's take this next step safely.
I'm walking a bit more these days. For those silly skimmed milk and we're down to the last sheet of kitchen roll type trips. It's not just getting the steps in, it's the other stuff, you know. Seeing a bit more of the neighbourhood. Cool buildings, a bit of green space. And the out-of-tune postman. Wherever you're going, there's good in every journey, whether you bike it or walk it. Download the TfL Go app to find walking and cycling routes. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
In 1975, Vanguard was founded on a revolutionary idea to help more people become successful investors.
The idea caught on,
People told their friends.
and they told their friends.
Now, Vanguard has 30 million investors worldwide, and it's a Which recommended provider for investment platforms once again in 2020. Join us today. Vanguard, value to investors. When investing, your capital is at risk.
At McDonald's, we're always working to build on our happy meal. Which is why we're giving your little ones the choice of a book or toy, and ditching hard plastic toys altogether. And why we've recycled old toys into one of McDonald's house charity playgrounds. In fact, we're building one right now. Sorry for the noise. Participating restaurants only, served from 11 a.m.
Right, know what to do. Same deal as last year. Let's go for a take.
The Mayor of London and London Assembly elections are taking place on
The 6th of May.
the 6th of May.
Let's try that again from the top.
Understood. The Mayor of London and London Assembly elections are taking place on the 6th of May. Find out how you can take part at londonelects.org.uk. Have your say.
Great, that'll do nicely.
The Eddie Mayer Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. This is LBC.
The verdict on George Floyd's murderer is in. But last year, after we witnessed what happened to him thanks to video footage, there was widespread outrage, of course, and some people took to the streets in this country. I mentioned a moment ago Guardian analysis. 260 towns and cities saw protests in June and July last year. On one weekend, there were 160 protests. Lots of people so passionate about this, they wanted to get out onto the streets, and they did. I want to hear from you this hour if you were one of those people. Tell me what it was like, why you were there, what was the purpose for you. And crucially, what happens now? Certainly in the United States, there is all sorts of talk, as we've reported, about not leaving it there. Minneapolis police force is being investigated. There are all sorts of legislative plans. But what about here? Because I suspect that many of the people who took the streets here while being appalled at what happened to George Floyd also had more local reasons to be on the streets. And if that's you, I'd love to hear what they are, and whether the movements that were started, the personal involvement that took place, whether that carries on, what its goal is, what you still want. 0345 6060 973. Gloria is in Camberwell. Hi Gloria, how are you?
Hello, Eddie.
So tell me about last year. Were you out on the streets?
Yeah, I was. As with many viewers that will probably be able to tell you, I watched the video pretty well from George Floyd, and I was upset, I was angry, I was horrified,
like?
It was very. There was a lot of anger. I think there was a lot of anger at what had happened. People just couldn't believe that this kind of thing could happen just so blatantly. I mean, this thing happens in America a lot, but just so blatantly that this policeman could kill this black man, and there were people standing around begging for his life to be saved, and he still killed him. And there was just this anger that something needs to be done. And what surprised me on the day was the fact that it wasn't just people like me, because I'm Afro-Caribbean. It was white people, Indian people, young, old, mothers. It was just a reflection of society, all colours, all genders. You know, just everybody was out on the street.
Did you take some comfort from that?
I did, because it meant that this killing really affected everybody. Everybody felt shocked, horrified that this had happened, and they felt that they had to show this emotion by going to the streets, not to like cause violence, but just to show that this thing could not continue to happen so blatantly.
So you had lots of comradeship, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
But for you with your skin colour, it must have been, because it shocked almost everybody, I'm sure. Some people weren't shocked by it, depending on the point of view, but most people were horrified. But wasn't it just more visceral for you?
I cried. I mean, I studied in my university. I studied civil rights. So the whole study of civil rights from the 50s to the 80s about these kind of things that used to happen underneath the KKK. And then to see this thing happening, you know, last year in 2020, it really made me so sad inside that so many years later, it didn't seem that we hadn't taken any steps forward. I mean, but the fact that this still happened, like a lynching on the street. And so when, like I said, when I went on the march, to see so many people feel like I felt, basically saying the chant, say his name, George Floyd, or I can't breathe, it meant something. And when we all stood in front of Downing Street and we took the knee, we all felt united. We all felt like one, you know? We all felt impassioned.
Can I ask about the verdict last night? I don't know if you were listening to radio or watching TV.
I was watching TV. I was watching, I was making dinner and I was waiting for the verdict to come. And I must admit, I held my breath because I was scared that they would find a not guilty verdict, because as history has shown in America, like with Rodney King and, you know, certain other acts, the police have got off. And it was really great that he's been convicted, but I think it's just a small step. You know, this is sort of the first step forward. There are so many other people, not only in America, in Britain, that maybe have passed away in suspicious police circumstances, you know? And I think we all need to stand up and recognise this and look to what we can do as people that see racial discrimination around us. We have to all speak out. And that's the only way we're going to move forward, not just in America, but in England and Britain, you know, everywhere. We all have to speak up for those that haven't got a mouth to speak.
Well, that's what I'm curious about. Is if for you, and think about this country solely, I mean, I know you care about the United States and elsewhere, but in the UK, for people of colour, is it solely about how they're treated by the police?
I think that there is a lot of issue with the police. I do feel that sometimes perhaps a case of maybe desensitization of seeing maybe the same race and gender committed certain crimes, maybe
wanted to ensure staff returning to the UK to help build medical ventilators wouldn't be penalised. The US Justice Department has opened an inquiry into the Minneapolis Police Department. It follows the conviction of former officer Derek Chauvin for the murder and manslaughter of George Floyd last year. The coroner has called on the government to set tougher pollution targets following the death of a 9-year-old girl. Philip Barlow ruled last year that air pollution contributed to Ella Kissy-Deborah's fatal asthma attack in South London. Cloud lifting to leave a dry and clear night. A widespread frost in central and eastern parts. A low of -4.
altering police powers and any excessive or unlawful use of force within the protests, as well as coordinating arrestee support, so people who were arrested at the protests, making sure that they had somewhere a safe passage home when they were released from the police station, often in the early hours of the morning in a different side of London, including many young people and other things like that.
How were relations with the police in your experience?
So, although of course Britain isn't the same as the United States, there are very similar patterns of institutional racism within our policing here. So we know that I could reel off many statistics about black people being more likely to be on the receiving end of use of force, or of tasers, or disproportionately arrested and searched and those types of things. And so we should probably be unsurprised that those patterns were reproduced at the protests themselves. But I think what was perhaps most concerning about the protests were the far-right mobilisations which took place, in which we saw at least two people quite seriously injured by far-right protesters, bleeding and everything. And the police on both those occasions being very, very negligent indeed, not providing access to an ambulance, in one case actually searching a young black boy who had been beaten up quite badly by far-right activists. So there are very serious problems in British policing, as well as in the United States, I would say.
I want to come on in a moment to what needs to happen next. Just in terms of the protests, were you able to genuinely be part of them and enjoy them for what they were, or were you too busy behind the scenes doing what you had to do?
I was mainly behind the scenes doing what I have to do. I mean, researching these kinds of protests is part of my job as well. So I was kind of there in a kind of research capacity as well as a kind of professional care capacity. But they were vibrant, they were loud, it was difficult not to be inspired by them, if I'm perfectly honest. And I think that the energy that was galvanised in those weeks and months as something that I think has inspired a whole generation of young people to challenge the existing problems in our society.
Well, that's what I want to get to, really, because to have that energy and to have people galvanised and inspired leads us to, okay, well, this verdict is in. What happens now in this country?
So, I think there are two things here that's really crucial. The first thing is that while we continually pay attention to what is happening in the United States, I think it's really crucial we don't take the eye off the ball of all the problems that exist here in Britain. But I think what's also crucial is that there's very little evidence that the court system and the criminal justice system is going to be the solution to the problems that exist in the criminal justice system. I don't think the criminal justice system is able to self-regulate. In fact, I don't think any institution is really able to regulate itself effectively. And so I think it's incumbent on us to look back at what the most salient demands were of these protest movements, both in the US and the United Kingdom, to thinking about how we can potentially move forward to address these kinds of problems. And as I mentioned before on LBC, here in Britain, our prison population has almost doubled since 1993. In fact, the women's prison population is more than doubled. The police have far more powers than they've ever had before. Powers of surveillance, of search, of incarceration, and many more potentially with this new bill that the government's trying to introduce. And so what these movements are arguing for, in fact, is reducing the power and resources of the police and prison system and investing in alternative forms of governance and state infrastructure, which can improve public safety and improve the lives of people most badly affected by crime. Right? So these are things like investing in mental health services, and youth services, and housing, and decent jobs, and better access to further and higher education. All of these types of things, I think, will be a far more productive investment in improving public safety, while simultaneously reducing people's likelihood to come into contact with the police and prison system, and therefore, of course, by extension, reduce their likelihood of experiencing violence and harm.
Good to hear from you. Thank you, Adam Elliott Cooper, who is also a research associate in sociology at Greenwich University and author of Black Resistance to British Policing. We'll talk more about this if you were part of the demonstrations last year. It's 0345 6060 973. Now, as always around this time, Let's bring you the COVID report. All the COVID headlines in one place. Here is LBC's Charlotte Lynch.
Eddie, we've been hearing a lot about this politically, but if there is indeed an inquiry into the government's handling of the coronavirus pandemic, then this is the kind of thing that will be scrutinised. The Prime Minister has been under fire from Labour after it emerged that he texted businessman Sir James Dyson saying he would fix tax rules for him. It's after Dyson was asked to send staff to the UK to make NHS ventilators at the start of the pandemic amid fears of a shortage. Boris Johnson has dismissed Labour's accusations of sleaze and cronyism.
We secured 22,000 as a result of that ventilator challenge. I think it was entirely the right thing to do, to work with all potential makers of ventilators at that time, Mr. Speaker.
Labour has claimed there is evidence the Prime Minister may have breached the ministerial code. Downing Street insists he did not. Sir James said the ventilators were provided for free and he didn't benefit financially from it. Surge testing will be deployed in Birmingham, where a case of the South African variant of coronavirus has been found. The person has self-isolated and their contacts have been identified. The testing will take place in the Alum Rock, Glebe Farm and Tile Cross wards. Everybody there who's over 16 is being asked to get a PCR swab, whether or not they have symptoms. We're told this case isn't linked to a case previously identified in the Birmingham and Sandwell areas. More than a fifth of adults in the UK have now received 2 doses of a coronavirus vaccine. Latest data shows a further 22 people have died in the UK within 28 days of testing positive for COVID, and a further 2,396 cases were recorded in the latest 24-hour period. In Scotland, weekly coronavirus deaths are now at their lowest level since early October. 24 were recorded in the last week. That's down 95% from the peak in January. Now, scientists are working on new at-home treatments for coronavirus. The new government task force is working to find antiviral medicines, which include a tablet taken after testing positive for COVID to prevent illness. It could also include a separate pill that people could take if somebody they live with contracts the virus, to stop them from catching it. Professor Girk Randhawa is director of the Institute for Health Research. He says the government shouldn't rely on this approach.
I would urge the government to not become over-reliant on vaccines and pills, which is a medical model of approaching the pandemic, and really focus, as have countries like Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia, etc., really focus on the public health model of keeping case rates low and stopping infection in the first place. That's the only way we're going to keep the economy going and grow the economy and maintain public health.
Well, it's hoped at least 2 treatments will be available by winter, perhaps as early as autumn. France will start using the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine next week. This after the European Medicines Agency said it had found a possible link between the vaccine and very rare cases of unusual blood clots, but the EMA stressed the benefits of the jab outweigh the risks. And new research suggests the decision to offer people under 30 in the UK an alternative to the AstraZeneca vaccine hasn't had any impact on people's intentions of getting the jab. The University of Stirling found 85.7% of respondents intended to get the vaccine on April the 9th, compared to 86.1% on March the 17th.
Charlotte Lynch with the LBC COVID report. More on last year's marches in the UK and what the marchers want to happen next about race in this country. 6:46, here's Thomas Watts with the news.
Boris Johnson has told MPs he makes no apology at all for a text message exchange with Sir James Dyson following claims of cronyism. The US Justice Department has opened an inquiry into the police force in Minneapolis, and the co-chair of Manchester United has admitted the club got it wrong in joining the European Super League. Tonight, cloud lifting to leave a dry and clear evening, and widespread frost in central and eastern parts, a low of -4.
LBC Travel, I'm Jada Beast Knight, and the M25 stays partially blocked anti-clockwise with an accident between Goston and Sixton Clackett Lane services. It's heavy to the scene. Clockwise, there are delays over the QE2 bridge at junction 1B for Dartford, following an earlier accident. An accident in Tooting is now blocking Trinity Road eastbound near Tooting Beck Station. That's causing delays from Wandsworth Common and Collier's Wood. There are delays of half an hour out of town the A12 this evening from Hackney Wick to Newbury Park.
Roadworks in Wallington are causing queues on Chalkpit Way both ways from Manor Road to the Sutton Gyratory, but on the trains, London North Western are getting back to normal from Watford Junction to St Albans Abbey after a train broke down.
Coming up at 7 on LBC.